Hey, what's up, YouTube? Antithesis here again, just ready to shake my fist at the void. I want to talk a little bit about the Democratic Party because since Trump has become president again, the Democrats have had a very hands-off approach to at least the Democratic Party. Not the voters. The voters want heads, but the party, the party leaders, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries specifically, have had a very hands-off approach. Their approach to this has been, well, let Trump tank himself, let him do all these terrible things, and then we'll swoop in and pick up the pieces, and the American people will love us. Even if we don't actually do anything to make their lives better, they'll love us just by proxy of us not being Trump. And to some extent, I think he's correct. I think both of them are correct in that assessment. I think the American people don't really pay that much attention to politics. And I think they pay even less attention to what the individual political parties are doing. And since we insist on this two-party system, that kind of sets the situation up so that the Democrats don't really have to do anything except wait for Trump to self-destruct and then swoop in 2028 and hopefully clean up the pieces if we get the chance to vote again in 2028. It doesn't look like he's ready to leave, honestly. I don't think Trump will be going through all this to put a ballroom in the White House and all this other shit if he was planning on leaving in 2028. Not to mention he has those 2028 hats for Trump, which is kind of ridiculous. I almost say ridiculous and retarded at the same time, but they're both. It's both, really. But first let me start with this. About 10 years ago, when Bernie Sanders first ran for Democratic primary in 2015, I remember having a conversation with my father where he made it clear that he didn't like Bernie Sanders not because he didn't like his platform. He did. He liked all of the things that Bernie Sanders said he wanted to do. At least that's what he said to me. But he didn't like the fact that Bernie Sanders was running as a Democrat because he felt like Bernie Sanders was hijacking the Democratic Party. He would say things like that to me, like, oh, he's not even really a Democrat. He just caucuses with the Democrats. He's just hijacking the party, blah, blah, blah. And I always think to myself, yeah, so what? Who gives a shit? If he's hijacking the Democratic Party, doesn't that speak to the weakness of the Democratic Party? If you, as a party, are have a base and you're supposed to appeal to that base and try to get their votes, earn their votes, and some guy can just swoop into your party, run as a member of your party, and swoop all those votes up, doesn't that speak to a weakness or an inability or unwillingness to talk to your constituents and actually represent them, which is why he can swoop in and just take over like that? I never understood how that was Bernie Sanders' fault and not the Democratic Party's fault. And I think that has a lot to do with how the older generation views the Democratic Party. For a lot of these people, especially older black people, I think the Democratic Party is just kind of this fixture that made sure that they don't end up as second-class citizens again after Jim Crow, which they largely have, I guess, kind of. But don't get me wrong, they're definitely better than Republicans. Republicans are evil. Let's get that out of the way. Before I say anything else, let me make that absolutely clear in this video. I do not like the Democratic Party. They are a useless, feckless, weak party that doesn't do anything except sit on their hands and wait for Donald Trump or the Republicans to fuck up. They're terrible at messaging. They're terrible at reading the room. They're terrible at guiding their constituents. They're bad at all of these things. They are also head and shoulders above the Republican Party, who is all of these things and evil, except I do think they're better at messaging. The Republicans are exceptional at messaging. But they're evil. They don't want anything good for anybody except the 1% and their friends, their billionaire friends. They're not really interested in the rest of us having an equitable opportunity in life. They just kind of want to tell us whatever it takes to get us to shut up and not want to be taxed so that we can trick our government into not taxing the wealthy because somehow that affects the regular person. But the Republican Party is worse. So everything I'm going to say in this video, let me preface this with saying that the Republican Party is worse by a magnitude of about 10 and a half, okay? So do not take anything I say negatively in this video about the Democratic Party as an endorsement of the Republican Party. I do not. They are evil, disgusting organization that makes up lies about minorities in order to trick white people into giving up their rights and giving up any social safety net programs that could be helpful for them because they can be convinced that black people are going to receive those benefits as well, and they don't want that. So not all white people, obviously, but they're voters. So let me just to get that out of the way. Now, back to the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party, led by Hakeem Jeffries in the House Minority Leader, I'm sorry. And I don't know, yeah, House Minority Leader, and Chuck Schumer, who is the Senate Minority Leader. These two individuals are disgusting. They need to go. They are weak. They are inconsistent. They're dishonest, and they lie. Well, I guess dishonest and lie is the same thing. But the biggest thing is that they're weak. They're afraid of taking on Trump. And it's like, bro, all you have to do is go out there and say, why is this guy breaking all these laws? Why is he arresting all these people who have done nothing wrong? Why is he going after politicians that disagree with him? Why is he deporting people with no due process? Now there's going to be a portion of the population that doesn't care about those things or okay with those things or even endorse those things. But that's not everybody. So the louder you are about that, the more chances you have of people who are not okay with that being made aware of what's happening. Because that's what the Republican Party is counting on right now. They're counting on the fact that the Democrats are so bad at messaging that the only people that are going to be really plugged into politics are going to be the people that hear their side of the story, which is that the Democrats are doing this or that or keeping things difficult or making things harder for the administration and all this other stuff. All the Democrats need to do is be loud, but they refuse because they don't believe in anything. They're corporatist sellout shills whose job it is to be middle management between us and the 1%. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, their job is not to represent us. It's not to go to Washington and do things in our best interest or even in the best interest of the constituents that voted them in their own states and districts. Their job is to prevent us, the rest of us, the 99%, from hanging the 1%. That's their job. That's it. Their job is to make sure that we don't get so crazy, we want to start a revolution and hang the 1%, but that we also don't get pushed so far that we try to turn towards stuff like socialism. Because to them, socialism is a dirty word because they're funded by a lot of the same billionaire donors that the Republicans are funded by, obviously to a much lesser degree and not to the same, not the same exact donors for the most part. Some of them do donate to both parties and have exert influence over both parties. But for the most part, they're not exactly the same people donating to these two different groups. So the Democratic Party is corrupt, not to the same extent or in the same way as the Republican Party, but they are corrupt nonetheless. Make no mistake about that. We can't trust them as an arm of our government that we can actually use to facilitate good change for us as regular people, because that's not what they're there for. They're not interested in that. At this point, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are behaving no differently from controlled opposition. And that's largely because I think they are. They're paid by their donors to shut the fuck up about Israel, shut the fuck up about universal health care, discourage people from socialism, never endorse Mamdani under any circumstances, even though he is the most popular politician in New York City right now, period, bar none, without exception. They still will not endorse Zohran Mamdani. Now, if you remember back in 2015, if you're like me and you were around during the Democratic primary in 2015, everybody kept saying, vote blue no matter who, vote blue no matter who, vote blue no matter who, vote blue no matter who. So even if it's Hillary Clinton, you don't like Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders lost, you still got to vote blue no matter who, because you don't want the Republicans to win. You don't want Donald Trump in office. Well, she lost, firstly. Secondly, all that went down the toilet because now Zohran Mamdani is the one that's winning in New York City. There is no argument to be made about his popularity, how well the people in the New York City respond to his platform, or how good he is at messaging. There's no denying any of these things. And still, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer refuse to endorse Zohran Mamdani. That's because they're not on our side. They are not our friends. They are not interested in making life better for us. They care about their own power. That's it. That's it. That's all they care about. And the funny thing is, all this kowtowing and bending over and putting your ass in the air. Yes, sir, you can do whatever you want, Mr. Trump. Please don't try to ignore the legislative branch. We still want to be able to have the power of the purse and make budgetary changes. All this this compliance and weakness, none of it matters. None of it matters because Trump still looks at them and says, oh, look at these communists, radicals, socialists, leftists, Marxists, fascists. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you do. Doesn't matter what you do. Trump's never going to like you. He's never going to call the dogs off of you. That's not going to happen. It's only going to get worse. So all you're doing is you continue to comply as you continue to basically kowtow to Trump. It's never going to win you the brownie points that you hope it will. All it's going to do is give him more and more ammunition for when he ultimately does decide to try to have you arrested as political dissidents. That's all it's going to do because it's going to make you look weaker. So I'm not sure. It's kind of all I wanted to say. I just kind of wanted to get on here and yell about how bad the Democratic Party is, despite how much I prefer them over the Republican Party, and how we need some leadership change in the Democratic Party. We do. These guys got to go. They got to go. They are not our friends. They shouldn't be in leadership positions in this party. Instead of appointing AOC, I forget what position it was even about. It doesn't even fucking matter, honestly. AOC was poised to win a top position in Democratic leadership, and they shafted her for some motherfucker that's got cancer that died like 2 months later or some shit. Like, why? It's because they're not our friends. If you view it through that lens that the Democratic Party hates you, does not care about you and only cares about its own power, it becomes much easier for us to realize that and use the Democratic Party for what it should be to us, which is a vehicle through which we can defeat the Republican Party. It should not be the ends. It is the means, nothing more. So that's all I got to say. I'm not really feeling that well today, so I'm just going to make this one a pretty short one because I just wanted to get up here and talk about the Democratic Party since the shutdown has made me utterly disgusted by not only the Democratic Party, obviously the Republicans. They're too far gone. Honestly, the Republicans they're too far gone. But the Democratic Party has been disgusting on shutdowns, and particularly this one. They've not been active in messaging enough. They have not been out there saying, oh, well, Trump and the Republicans are literally trying to take away healthcare, blah, 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 and trying to deport people, and doesn't care about due process. He got Jimmy Kimmel taken off air, so he doesn't care about free speech. You know, we've been in wars, even though he said he was going to end wars on day one. They're not doing any of these things. They're not even. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, just recently was outed for having a Grindr profile, being gay or whatever, right? I don't know if he's gay or has gay sex. Either way, you have this guy who's a flat-out hypocrite who comes out here and rails against gay people, gay marriage, trans, LGBT, and all this shit. Meanwhile, he's on Grindr getting his ass plugged in. Like, it's insane, bro. But they don't talk about that. The Democrats don't talk about that. They don't talk about that at all. But anyways, that's all I wanted to talk about. So let me know what you think of the Democratic Party. If you like the Democratic Party, if you don't like the Democratic Party, you're still one of those people that are dedicated to the Democratic Party, just let me know, because I find them to be detestable and I think we need leadership change. But I want to know if people still support them. Are you one of those old heads who still likes the Democratic Party no matter what they do? Let me know in the comments. I'll be reading them. So thanks for watching YouTube. I just wanted to get on here and air out my feelings on the Democratic Party, and I'll see you next time I'm ready to shake my fist at the void. Thanks.